Welcome to this recording from the Legal Aid Agency's Contract Management and Assurance team on an introduction to submitter bulk claims, immigration and asylum fee codes. We hope at the end of this session you'll have a better understanding of why a submitter bulk claim requires a single fee code to enable the pricing of claims, an understanding of how those fee codes map across to existing matter type codes, when then to use each fee code, and an understanding of how the recent fee uplift affects the pricing of matters opened on or after the 22nd of December 2025. And finally, an understanding of how the cost limit validation that will exist in submitter bulk claim will work and how to demonstrate authority to exceed the limit in reporting a claim. When the system is launched, there will still be work ongoing to add functionality to it. Some features might not be available immediately for launch, but are planned to follow as soon as practicable. Unfortunately, while we've been able to restore many of our systems following the cyber attack, we are unable to restore safely our CWA system. This is the system that you would have used to report your crime lower, controlled work and mediation monthly outcome and NMS submissions. So we're taking the step to replace that with a new limited service called Submit a Bulk Claim, SaBC. This service will be launched in early 2026. And the focus of this will be to ensure that we can allow you to submit and price your claims, and then that this information will feed through to your monthly payments, taking us away from the monthly contingency process that we've had since late May 2025. Due to the need to deliver a working service as quickly as possible, we've limited the scope of this system to only support the submission and pricing of claims. Other functionality will follow, but upon launch that will be the focus of its use. For instance, while CWA also held information on contract schedules and allowed for the execution of contracts, this function will sit outside of SaBC, and we are developing a service to be able to deal with those functions. One change you will notice when you use Submit a Bulk Claim is that it will necessitate a change in how some providers report their submissions to us. The new service will require all providers to submit claims either via revised bulk upload spreadsheet export or through updated exports directly from a case management system. Providers will no longer have the ability to directly input a claim line by line onto the system. The other significant change, and this is the focus of this session, is that providers will need to include a new single fee code as part of each claim that they submit. Providers will need to include this not only for claims that are opened once the system is launched, but on any claim that they intend to put through the service. So this will include those claims that have been subject to contingency payments since May 2025. When submitted into Submit a Bulk Claim, they too will also need to have fee codes added to them. To support providers in making that change, we've been working closely with software vendors who are updating their systems to accommodate and enable the new fee codes to be used. Most vendors have confirmed that they're going to auto-generate the codes in claim exports. Therefore, providers won't need to manually add those codes in. The reason we've had to introduce the concept of a single fee code is due to the level of complexity that existed in CWA, particularly around the pricing of claims in different categories. Within CWA, each category had a different trigger for the pricing of a claim. Some categories, such as immigration, relied on the matter type 1 code to determine which fee scheme and which fee would be applicable for that individual claim. For other categories, such as family, it was the case stage level field that would determine the fee that would be applicable. The complexity of that pricing is not something that could be replicated in the time required to deliver this new service. And a new uniform way of triggering the pricing was needed, and that will be the single fee code. This code will determine which fee or fee scheme the claim is payable under, and the service will then add on any further amounts due to the provider in that particular instance. So that may be disbursements, or in the case of immigration, it may be additional payments for advocacy services. There will be validation in the service, predominantly linked around case start dates. That would determine that the correct fee is payable. As you'll be aware, there have recently been uplifts to the fees in the immigration and housing categories. The validation between the fee code and the case start date will ensure that the appropriate fee is triggered and included in the pricing. Providers, case management software vendors have been asked to maintain any pre-existing validation that was held in case management systems unless told otherwise. So this will be things like the validation between matter type 1 and matter type 2 codes. There's no change to whether certain combinations are valid or correct, and therefore we've not asked software vendors to change any of that validation. You can find details of the new fee codes and supporting guidance on gov.uk, and the direct links to those are within the slides and on the final slide. Aside from the new fee code, providers will still report the same level of data as they did in CWA, with the bulk load spreadsheet retaining the same format and fields as existed for use in CWA. Again, due to the time constraints in putting into place this new service, we have not taken steps to revise and remove any fields. In order to minimize the complexity that introducing a new field and new fee code may bring, where possible, we've tried to map these against the pre-existing code that providers are used to reporting, but in a different field. For instance, in immigration and asylum, 98% of hourly rates and standard fee claims will map directly across from a matter type 1 code to an equivalent fee code. In CWA, it was this matter type 1 code that determined the fee scheme and the fee triggered. In submit a bulk claim, it will be the single fee code that will determine the fee scheme and the standard fee credited. In CWA, there were 18 matter type 1 codes, whereas in SaBC, there will be 26 single fee codes. Providers must still report the matter type 1 and 2 codes along with the fee code. These codes, particularly the matter type 2 codes, give us additional information about the nature of the case and the advice given. The standard fee single fee codes will also include the value of the substantive hearing additional payment where applicable. So for instance, a stage 2E matter in which this is a claim for a standard fee for a appeal before the first tier tribunal will also include within that the attendance at the substantive hearing, as that is a condition of that fee being claimed. Previously, providers will have had to select and added that payment in addition to the main standard fee. Providers will still need to claim for any other additional payments and disbursements to ensure they are priced in addition to the fee code. As you can see on this slide, in relation to the standard fee scheme, for matters paid under the standard fee, all claims will map across to an existing matter type 1 code. What does this mean in practice? So if you have, for instance, a legal help asylum matter payable under the standard fee, the matter type 1 code you would use to report that claim would be IALB. The single fee code will be exactly the same. That will also be IALB. So the same code you put in the matter type 1 code field, you would also put in the single fee code field, and it will generate payment on the same basis as it would have done if you'd been using CWA. As you can see there, each of those standard fees and matter type 1 codes map across directly to an equivalent single fee code. We hope therefore that that will be easier for providers to implement and understand. For hourly rates cases, almost 90% of claims will similarly map across to an existing matter type code. For instance, most legal help hourly rates cases that are asylum would have used the IAXL matter type 1 code, and most of those will also then use the IAXL single fee code. And the same applies to all of those other hourly rates cases and matter types listed on this slide. There are, however, some hourly rates matters which, while sitting under the same fee code, have different cost limits. So these would be matters where the matter type 1 code may have been IAXL, but 2 different cost limits would have applied depending on the nature of the matter. We'll go on to talk about this on the next slide. To enable the introduction of cost limit validation into submit a bulk claim, we've had to create additional fee codes which need to consider the matter type 2 code when mapping across. There are some cases then that we can't directly map across from a matter type 1 to a single fee code without also taking account of what the matter type 2 is. For instance, there are those cases where a provider may be undertaking work under transitional arrangements in relation to an appeal before the upper tribunal. These would be paid under hourly rates at CLR, and a provider would use the matter type 1 code IAXC or IMXC for those. However, those cases do not have a cost limit, whereas other matters that would use those same matter type 1 codes may, and therefore we need to distinguish them from each other by reference to two different single fee codes. So the single fee code for those upper tribunal matters which don't have a cost limit will be IRAR. Similarly, under legal help, there are two types of case where advice is given and the cost limit is £100 as opposed to a higher £500 or £800. Therefore, we've created a separate single fee code for those two cases. IA 100 would be used. And these relate to pre-screening advice or advice on the merits of an appeal to the upper tribunal where the provider was not instructed for the first tier tribunal appeal. We've also created individual single fee codes for the different stage disbursement claims. This is because it's not the claim type that will determine which costs form part of the pricing, and different cost limits will apply depending on how the underlying matter is funded. For instance, a legal help matter will have an initial disbursement limit of £400, whereas a CLR standard fee matter will have an initial disbursement limit of £600. Therefore, when applying cost limit validation, the two need to be distinguished, and therefore we've created the ILHSD single fee code for the legal help stage disbursement, and we've created ICCSD for the CLR standard fee stage disbursement. There are two other stage disbursement single fee codes for hourly rates CLR cases as well, again because different cost limits will apply to those two situations. And finally, we've also created two single fee codes for the two DDAS fees, which don't have cost limits but are distinct fees depending on how many clients have been seen at a surgery. So IDAS1, where 1 to 4 clients have been seen, or IDAS2, where 5 or more clients have been seen. You'll have gathered from the earlier slides that part of the reason why we've introduced these additional single fee codes is that we've also taken the opportunity when creating submit a bulk claim to introduce an increased level of validation around cost limits. CWA did contain some validation around cost limits, but this was focused on disbursements only. We've taken the opportunity within submit a bulk claim to expand this validation to also include and consider profit costs and counsel fees as well as disbursements. This is something that providers had previously called for to be added to CWA, as it gave greater reassurance that they could not then report costs that would exceed cost limits and face potential error and subsequent recoupment of costs as a result. The validation within submit a bulk claim then will result in claims being capped at an applicable cost limit if a valid prior authority number is not reported. If a claim is capped due to a prior authority number being omitted, a provider will either need to void the claim and resubmit it with the prior authority number included, or request that claim is amended to add that reference number to the claim. The validation within submit a bulk claim is linked to the fee code, so the selection of the correct code is vital, as that will determine what cost limit is applied to the claim. For instance, the validation on fee code IAXL will cap claims where the disbursements reported are above £400 or profit costs are above £800 without a prior authority number being reported. How should providers then report a prior authority number as part of their claim? A cost limit may apply to the profit costs in a case, to the disbursements in a case, or to the total costs on a case, depending on the fee scheme and whether the case related to the legal help or CLR level of funding. If more than one cost limit applies, for instance, to one limit to profit costs and another to disbursements, and both have resulted in a cost extension being granted, then a provider need only report one prior authority number in their claim. Both numbers should be retained on file, however. Currently, the field in Submit a Bulk Claim and in the bulk load spreadsheet is still titled NIAT Immigration Disbursement Prior Authority Number. This will be renamed in due course as the Immigration Prior Authority Number, but in the meantime it should be used where reporting any prior authority number in the immigration category. There are some contractual exceptions in the 2024 Standard Civil Contract in which costs relating to certain activities or attendances may be incurred above the cost limit, but without the need for prior authority or allocation of an individual prior authority number. How then will providers claim for these costs if the system has validation to prevent costs above a limit being claimed without a prior authority number? To assist, we've created individual default prior authority numbers for each of these scenarios, and these should be reported where applicable. There are 5 such exceptions in the contract, and a separate default prior authority number has been created for each of these. For instance, where the provider is claiming the reasonable costs for attending a Home Office interview with an unaccompanied asylum-seeking child, and it's those costs that are claimed in addition to the cost limit and would result in them reporting an amount that is higher than that cost limit, they can use the default PAN CH00001, and that will ensure that those additional costs can be claimed without being capped. So what does a provider need to do? The cost limit validation will apply to all immigration claims that are uploaded into Submit a Bulk Claim, including those that relate to matters concluded prior to the launch of the service. You may therefore have cases where they concluded between May and the launch of the service, and you also need to claim for those cases on Submit a Bulk Claim. You would need to ensure that those cases also have a prior authority number included in them if you're seeking to claim costs in excess of the limits. Providers will need to check their claims and identify any claims in which the reported costs would exceed a cost limit, and ensure that an allocated prior authority number relating to that cost limit is reported, or cost limits are limited to the cost limit if no authority was obtained, or that the default exception prior authority code is used where one of the 5 exceptions apply and the costs incurred above the limit were due to that exception. In the absence of any prior authority number, costs may be capped by Submit a Bulk Claim. If you legitimately obtained a cost extension but cannot locate the prior authority number, please contact colleagues via the email on the slide and they will be able to confirm the applicable number to you. We recently announced the uplifting of all claimable rates for immigration and housing controlled work at the end of December 2025. This applies to any application made on or after the 22nd of December 2025. The same codes as listed in the earlier slides can still be used regardless of the application date, as Submit a Bulk Claim will have validation between the fee code and the case start date reported to ensure that the correct fees are credited. For instance, if once the system is launched, you seek to report a legal help asylum standard fee matter with a case start date of the 1st of September 2025, the system will credit the fee of £413. If, however, the case was started after the uplift was introduced, on the, say for instance, the 1st of January 2026, then Submit a Bulk Claim would credit the uplifted fee of £559. Providers should therefore engage with their software vendors to ensure their own case management system correctly reflects the uplifts to the fees and the hourly rates. We appreciate there are a raft of changes that will be coming in quite a short space of time between the uplift and the launch of Submit a Bulk Claim. If providers do need further assistance or have questions as to the application of the single fee codes or any queries as to which codes to use when reporting their claims, they can contact their contract manager or the customer services team. Where you're also unable to answer a query using the available guidance, you can also forward it to the dedicated Submit a Bulk Claim Queries email address. Representatives from our contract management and assurance, digital and service development teams will triage these emails and respond to those queries, and if necessary, update our published FAQs. Technical issues with the system. So these may concern error messages you receive when trying to access, or if you have any issues with uploading files, for instance, they should be directed to online support in the first instance. Published guidance communications can be found on our dedicated Submit a Bulk Claim page on gov.uk. So as we finish this session, the three things that we would ask providers to take away from it are to ensure that you use the correct fee code for pricing and validation. Most of these will map directly to an existing matter type 1 code. That you should also report a prior authority number or default prior authority number when needed to ensure that costs are not capped incorrectly. You should ensure you check the case start date that you report to determine whether the uplifted fees or rates apply. You can find additional guidance, communications and support on the dedicated pages on gov.uk, which include our Submit a Bulk Claim page and our page containing the civil contract documents. You can also find on this slide the link to the procedure and remuneration amendment regulations relating to the December 2025 fee uplift. Thank you for your time.